one story I mentioned a couple of days ago that there was an effort by the Trump administration to remove all of the training in the federal agencies premised on this CRT, this critical race theory. CRT is critical race theory. I talked about in several different shows. I'll summarize it in about 2 sentences here. Critical race theory is an ideological concoction out of whole cloth, out of thin air, nothing academic to it, nothing factual to it. It is an ideological argument that America is a racist country premised on racial discrimination, that racial discrimination and racism permeates our society, our culture, our laws, our institutions, and so everything in America is to be denigrated. It's a profoundly anti-American theory. It is, again, a concoction of Harvard elitist professors who thought this was a way, essentially, to change the dialogue in this country, to change the discussion on issue after issue after issue. So Trump said in an executive order that we're not going to do this anymore. And I want to just tell you something very quick about what he's specifically talking about. The whole idea of this critical race theory and the trainings that grew out of it in federal government and in public schools and in public universities and in private businesses, all of this, it came from an order by President Obama back in 2011, Executive Order 13583. Executive Order 13583, in which Barack Obama basically said he established coordinated government-wide initiatives directing government-wide diversity and inclusion training. And that translated into training that was premised on the idea of convincing society that America is an evil place, that the very founding of America, as the New York Times 1619 Project is trying to do, the very premise of America is an evil, ugly, racist premise, that the entire country is permeated with racial hatred. And so the training is all about, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that actually occur in these trainings before I tell you what happened, because what I want to get to in the story today is that there was one federal agency that tried to ignore President Trump's order. Fortunately, it came to his attention. But I should tell you some of the things that are taught in these critical race theory trainings that President Trump was trying to stop. For example, they had one of these CRTs, critical race theory trainings. At its core, it's profoundly anti-white. It's not just trying to raise awareness and discuss how people feel about each other and to convince people to be more thoughtful and sensitive. It is a racist, anti-white premise. It starts out by trainers telling people who come to these that white males must work hard to understand their white privilege, their male privilege, their heterosexual privilege. So it starts with denigrating people because they're male, because they're white, and because they're heterosexual. You are attacked from the start, and just picture the room this is happening in. This is happening in a room filled with all sorts of people, with Americans of all backgrounds, race, ethnicity, national origin, skin color, and you're hearing from the government-authorized teacher up there that you're hearing scolding, ridicule, and accusation against white Americans. You're hearing the idea that you should begin to develop racial hatred toward other people because they happen to be white Americans. The entire idea of critical race theory, it is not to solve racism, it is to sow the seeds of racial division and hatred. It's the entire point. The point is not to help, uplift, understand, include. The point is to ridicule, mock, and divide. The point is to convince people that your very identity, the best identity you have, the only real identity you have, is based on your race. That's the point of this. All your identity is. Forget your uniqueness and your individuality and your education and your faith and your training and your education. Forget all of that. That's not who you are. All you are is a skin color. That's what critical race theory is all about. That's what all of this training was all about. And so you go to training and hear day after day how white people are scolded and told they're bad, that their history's bad, that the country's bad, that America's racist. How could anything good possibly come out of this? People were being trained on your tax dollar to hate America, to hate the country, to hate their fellow citizens, to see America as divided. President Trump finally had the courage to stand up and say, we're not teaching this anymore. We're not going to spend money teaching this to our fellow citizens, that you're all supposed to think of yourself as a mere racial unit, and you're to be forever pitted against other racial units, and to have the teacher stand in front of the class and scold everyone who happens to be white, male, or heterosexual. This is not America, not doing it anymore. Trump said done with that. So, before I get to what happened, I'll tell you one other quick thing that is flowing from the same executive order that President Obama issued. Same executive order gave rise to trainings in schools. And for example, trainers were taught, back to CRT, this critical race theory, trainers were taught that things like rugged individualism, a can-do attitude, hard work, and the idea that you should strive towards success, all of those ideas are characterized as reflecting white male culture. So you're teaching people, don't believe in the ideas of America, rugged individualism and a can-do attitude, hard work. All those things are really racist. You just didn't know it. You thought these were American ideas, but they're just racism. They're just white male supremacy. And they actually taught that if you imbue this society with those ideas, if you teach those ideas, you're making life harder for everybody else. So everybody ought to just back down and be quiet about the idea of rugged individualism, of achievement, of tying your reward to your achievement, of hard work. All of that is rejected. You don't buy into this hard work thing. Everything in life, not just how you think, but how you assess what's happened in this country. Where does success come from? They're trying to write off, and you have to recognize this Marxian, this Marxist idea behind this, trying to write off the truth that in a free country, in a free market country, you encourage people to work hard, to achieve, to dream, to succeed, and then to be able to keep the rewards of their hard work. These are ideas Marxist, socialist, communist, leftist, Democrats hate. And so all of this served to undermine freedom in this country. All of this CRT thinking served to undermine love of freedom and free markets and the concept of encouraging children and young people to move forward and work hard and strive and dream and achieve. No. Everything, every outcome, every fact, every issue in life is all premised on race, and the idea of telling someone to work hard so they can achieve, that's just white male supremacy. In addition, teachers were being told things like the idea that this is another training coming from the same executive order, another training in schools. Teachers are taught that if they're telling their students hard work, planning for the future, punctuality, these are to be rejected. These teachers are taught as white norms. Being on time, being punctual is a white norm, and teachers are told under this CRT idiocy that they should be telling kids, they should stop telling kids that punctuality matters, stop telling them that hard work matters, stop telling them planning for the future matters. None of that matters. It's all about race. We don't talk about qualities you should develop. We just talk about race all day long. So Trump finally got rid of all this garbage, and you had one agency that attempted to continue to use it anyway, and that agency was the CDC. They went ahead and planned another, critical race theory training session. Translation, another training session teaching people employed by the CDC to hate America, to hate their fellow citizens, to judge everyone by their skin color, to reject every founding great freedom-based idea of America. CDC still wants to use your tax dollars to pay people to come and train their agency people to embrace all of this anti-Americanism, and the name of the course was going to be Naming, Measuring, and Addressing the Impacts of Racism on the Health and Well-Being of the Nation and the World. The training included a session talking about the United States as institutionally racist. So Trump put a stop to it, executive order. CDC tried to do it anyway, and unfortunately for America, Trump became aware of it and put a stop to it. Russell Vought, the fabulous, I happen to know that guy. He's a great, great guy. Put out another notice from, he is now the officer, he's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vogt, put out this training is being canceled immediately. Just said, no, we're done with this. But you have to understand, I tell you this story just because I want to get clear about the idea how determined the left is to undermine love of America, how determined the left is to try to break America apart, to try to drive a wedge in the American people, to drive a wedge, a division in our society. I want to convince everyone and their brother to judge everybody else by race, forget about their faith, their education, their beliefs, their individuality. Everything's about race. America is an evil place, and this has been insidiously in our federal government, in our federal institutions, and has permeated schools around this country at least since 2011, when Obama's executive order was issued. This is Trump standing up and saying, no, we're going to stop this hate America training using tax dollars. We're going to stop. It was a great thing he did, a brave thing he did, and again, pay attention. I mean, note that idea. They're using race and the allegation of widespread racism, which no one's saying there's no racism at all in this country, but this allegation of systemic institutional racism rejected by many black conservative voices in this country is the premise for it. It's the idea for it. It is the instigation for it, that if you believe all of that, then you buy into everything else they're selling, and it ties into their selling of Marxism and the end of the free market spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit, because they're trying to get rid of the idea in the American culture and the people of America that you should encourage hard work, tying reward to hard work, punctuality, believing and striving and dreaming for and moving forward, strive for success. All of those elements necessary to a free people are part of the CRT training that are mocked by the leftists and saying, no, don't buy into this garbage about punctuality mattering. Don't buy into this garbage of hard work. It is at the same time dividing America by race and undermining belief in the goodness and greatness of freedom in America, free markets, entrepreneurship, freedom in America. Trump did a great and brave thing shutting that down.